It's as tough as threading a needle with spaghetti, trying existing medical tools is bound to fail. The professor then has a brainwave and asks Carpenter Thomas for help. Using superb carpentry, he made a blood vessel model and a custom ventilator, leaving everyone skeptical. People wondered why the professor chose a black assistant, but he confidently said Thomas made no mistakes in 12 years. Little did they know, Thomas wasn't just in the lab to keep the family afloat. His wife suggested he get a side job since he was working so hard. But if he took a job, who would look after the kids? Faced with life's challenges, Thomas could only offer comfort to his wife, even though the reality was that their situation kept getting worse. After 3 months' research, neither the ventilator nor vessel model was made, and few lab puppies remained. Then the professor proposed a new research direction. Why not design a smart ventilator instead? Thomas was tweaking the electronics, as if navigating his familiar room in the dark. His insight was like a lighthouse. Soon he successfully built the breathing machine, and the professor was so surprised he nearly jumped up out of his shoes. What a genius. You're my only hope. The others wouldn't want to see me fail. Then Thomas rushed to begin the experiments eagerly. Just then, Dr. Rommel came to see the professor and witnessed an unbelievable scene. Thomas was operating on the puppy with his eyes closed. Rommel was stunned, but Thomas casually replied, "It's like coming home at night and still finding your way around in the dark." Rommel couldn't help but admire Thomas. Before leaving, he expressed the desire to work with him. Indeed, strength is the best way to earn respect, but not for petty people. That day in the cafeteria, the server gave Thomas an extra hot dog. A nearby fat guy began mocking him, saying that even in a lab coat, he was just a third-rate worker, and his credentials were 2 years longer. He even made $2 more per hour. Thomas had no clue about job hierarchies and quickly rushed to check with HR. After repeated checks, Thomas found he was a third-rate repairman, not a lab technician, with a weekly wage of $16. At this moment, his anger was like a volcano ready to erupt. A joke from the professor was the final straw. "If you were to kill that dog, I would remove you from the payroll." "I'm merely making a joke. Do you really believe I can get by on just $16 a week?" The professor was focused on research and had no idea about Thomas' real identity. After Thomas left, Dr. Rommel called for the professor loudly as the puppy's blood oxygen reached the standard, indicating Thomas' success in replicating cyanosis. The doctor shouted, "Success, doctor. You did it." To push the experiment forward, the professor hurriedly called Thomas back to the lab and even approached the head of Johns Hopkins, hoping to elevate Thomas' position. Only with his assistance could the experiment go on. After being persuaded by the professor, the head reluctantly consented. This was the professor's first visit to Thomas' home after 13 years of working together. He told Thomas had secured a $25 weekly wage plus a $300 bonus for last year. His rank was also upgraded, and Thomas no longer declined the offer. Soon, they dove into the new experiment. While they had simulated the cyanotic state, implementing it was still a tough challenge. At this moment, Thomas suddenly recalled, and the professor suggested creating a bypass on the artery to directly inject blood into the lungs. This would solve the lungs' blood supply issue. It was their only way forward. The surgical experiment went well, but only Thomas could handle suturing the blood vessels. The professor marveled at his self-invented suturing technique. "Are you sure you did this? It's like evidence." This also proved their experiment to be successful once again, and then the professor went to inform the sick infant's parents. He told them a solution for cyanotic disease was found, but with risks, leaving decision to them. However, at this critical moment, the experimental puppy encountered problems. The sutured blood vessel suddenly ruptured, putting its life at risk. The next morning, he had a strange dream where a grown woman suddenly collapsed, yet her heart was that of a baby. This made the professor realize that sutures do not grow with the vessels. Once the blood vessels grow, the sutures would break. He had to develop a new type of suture that would allow one part of the vessel to attach while the other half really grew. But soon, the baby began showing symptoms of respiratory distress. This daunting task was assigned to Thomas, with even the professor stepping in as his assistant. Under the watchful eyes of all the surgeons, Thomas did not despair. He finally succeeded in developing the new suturing technique, but gathering assistants became a challenge. Many doctors worried failure would damage their reputation. None wanted to join the professor's surgery team. Only Dr. Rommel bravely raised his hand, while the department head, who always supported the professor, urged him to postpone the surgery until they gained more experience. But the professor knew that time was running out for the critically ill child. The next day, the baby was wheeled into the operating room. The child's parents were in tears, praying for a successful surgery. Outside the operating room, the elite of the medical world waited. However, Thomas was locked out. As time passed, everyone was ready. The caption reads, "The lead surgeon was hesitant to begin the operation because he had grown so accustomed to having Thomas by his side." Over the years, they had become like brothers. Without Thomas, he felt like he lost his guiding star. After much internal struggle, the professor finally decided to have Rommel bring Thomas into the operating room, but all that returned was a fraction of Rommel, as hospital policy forbade black participation in surgeries.